Before there were flight attendants offering you peanuts at 30,000 feet. Before crying babies on red-eye flights. Before we all knew the joys of cramped legroom and lost luggage. There was a dream. What if I told you that the very first commercial flight, the one that started it all, was so short you could have jogged the distance faster than the plane flew? Yeah, that happened, and it was awesome. In this video, we're going back to 1914, to a salty little bay in Florida, a rickety flying machine, and two brave men who made aviation history without knowing they were inventing an industry that would be worth trillions a century later. Let's dive in. The year was 1914. The world was on the brink of war. Horses still outnumbered cars in most cities. And if you wanted to get from St. Petersburg to Tampa, a 21-mile trip across Tampa Bay, you had two options. Option 1, a boat that took about 2 hours. Option 2, a train that took just as long with an extra sprinkle of delays and discomfort. Enter Percival Fansler, a visionary who believed that flight was unjust a novelty for daredevils. It was the future of transportation. He teamed up with Thomas Benoist, an aircraft builder from St. Louis. Benoist had the perfect flying machine. The Benoist Sheave, a tiny, fragile-looking flying boat made of wood, wire, and fabric. And when I say flying boat, I mean it literally. The plane took off from water and could barely carry one passenger. January 1st, 1914, a crowd of over 3,000 people gathered in St. Petersburg to watch history take off. The lucky first passenger, Abram Seafile, former mayor of St. Pete, he won the seat in an auction, paying $400 for a ticket. Adjusted for inflation, that's over $11,000 today for a 23-minute flight. Talk about first-class travel. The pilot, Tony Janis, just 25 years old and already famous for daring aerial stunts. At 10 o'clock a.m., Janis and File lifted off the water at a shaky 60 miles per hour. The plane wobbled, it bounced, it startled a few fish, but it made it. 23 minutes later, they landed in Tampa, to a cheering crowd and a changed world. That was the world's first scheduled paid commercial airline flight. You might be thinking, cool story? But so what? People fly every day now. But here's the thing. This wasn't just a novelty. This was the first time in history someone paid for a scheduled flight, boarded an aircraft, and got from point A to point B faster than any other method available. Think of it like this. This flight was to aviation what Amazon's first book sale was to e-commerce. It wasn't about the size of the act. It was the idea, the proof that it could work. Within a few years, aviation would be put to the test in World War I, speeding up development and proving how powerful flight could be. Then came airmail, passenger routes, international travel, and eventually those 12-hour economy flights where you can't feel your legs. Here are some wild facts about that first flight. The plane weighed 1,250 pounds, lighter than some cars. There were no seatbelts, no cockpit, just a wooden bench over open water. Flights were canceled regularly due to weather or mechanical issues. Sound familiar? The airline was called the St. Petersburg-Tampa Airboat Line, and it lasted only 4 months. But in that short time, they carried over 1,200 passengers. So while it was short-lived, it proved something big. People would pay to fly. Fast forward to today. It's over 100,000 flights take off around the world every single day. Airports are mini-cities. Air travel connects continents, cultures, and families. And it all started with one tiny plane, one short flight, and two men who said, yeah, let's try this. They didn't have GPS or radar, no autopilot, no pressurized cabins, but they had vision, guts, and a belief that this strange flying thing could actually take off. So next time you re-grumbling about airport security or wondering why your flight got delayed, again, just remember, you re-part of something much bigger. A story that began over 100 years ago with a leap of faith over Tampa Bay. Thanks for flying with us today. If you enjoyed the journey, hit that like, subscribe, and let us know in the comments. Would you have taken that first flight in 1914? Until next time, stay curious and keep looking up. Now, imagine you in St. Petersburg on that crisp January morning in 1914. The air is thick with anticipation as thousands of people gather by the waterfront. The scene is a mix of excitement and skepticism. People are buzzing about this crazy idea of flying machines and whether this stunt will actually work. You see, aviation was still a risky, almost reckless pursuit. Most folks thought airplanes were dangerous, unreliable contraptions, more of a circus act than a serious mode of transport. And then there's the plane itself, the Binoist 14. It looks more like a wooden toy than a serious flying machine. The flimsy-looking craft sits on the water, rocking gently in the breeze, its fabric wings stretched taut, almost delicate against the vast expanse of the sky. Then the two figures who will make history enter the scene. First, there's Percival Fansler, the driving force behind this whole venture. He's a businessman with a dreamer's heart, convinced that there's a fortune to be made in the sky. Then there's Tony Janos, the pilot. At just 25 years old, he's already a bit of a local legend. Known for his daring feats in the air, he's cool, calm, and confident, even in the face of the doubters. As you watch, a hush falls over the crowd. The engine sputters to life, sending a plume of smoke into the air. The propeller turns slowly, then faster, whipping the water into a frenzy. With a final check, Janos signals to fill the first passenger and motions to the open doorway of the plane. The former mayor of St. Pete climbs in cautiously, adjusting his hat and taking a deep breath. The moment arrives, the lurch and a jolt, the plane is airborne. It lifts off the water, soaring into the sky with surprising grace. Cheers erupt from the crowd as the plane banks and turns, heading towards Tampa. For those 23 minutes, the world seems to hold its breath, watching as this fragile machine dances through the air. When the plane touches down in Tampa, it's met with another roar of approval. The first commercial flight is over. The pioneers of aviation have done it. But it's not just a victory for them. It's a victory for anyone who has ever dared to dream of soaring above the clouds. As the crowd disperses, you can't help but feel like you've witnessed something truly special. A glimpse of the future that will change the world forever. And that's where you come in. Because this story isn't just about the past, it's about the future. This was the first flight, but it was also the last. Imagine the countless journeys yet to come, the lives that will be touched, the connections that will be made because of this historic moment. So the question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you let it inspire you to chase your own dreams? To dare to take flight and reach new heights? Or will you let it pass you by, becoming just another face in the crowd, another statistic in the sea of humanity? The choice is yours. But remember, history is made by those who dare to act, by those who are willing to take a leap of faith and soar into the unknown. So don't just stand by. Take action. Be part of the story, because the future is waiting for you to write it. Are you ready to take flight?